1 spilled glass of Merlot. That was all it took to turn 23-year-old Linda Bennett's life from a boring struggle into a terrifying hunt. She was just a waitress trying to pay her rent in New York City. She didn't know the man in the corner booth was Roman Castellano, the most ruthless shadow kingpin on the East Coast. And she definitely didn't know that the folder she accidentally knocked open contained the one secret that could bring his empire crumbling down. Now, she's not just unemployed, she's the only witness to a billion-dollar betrayal. And in Roman's world, witnesses don't get severance packages. They get silenced. But Roman is about to make a mistake worse than murder. He's about to fall for the target. The air inside L'Orologio, Manhattan's most exclusive Italian restaurant, smelled of truffle oil, aged leather, and fear. Linda Bennett adjusted her apron, wiping a bead of sweat from her temple. It was 10:30 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday, and her feet were throbbing inside her cheap black flats. She wasn't supposed to be working this section. The VIP alcove in the back was strictly for the senior staff, waiters who knew how to be invisible. But Sarah had gone home sick with the flu, and the manager, a nervous little man named Mr. Henderson, had shoved Linda towards the back. "Table 4, Henderson hissed, grabbing her arm. "Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not make eye contact. And for the love of God, Linda, do not spill anything. The man sitting there pays the rent for this entire building." Linda nodded, her stomach twisting. "Who is he?" "You don't want to know," Henderson whispered, pushing a heavy tray of 1945 Petrus wine into her hands. "Go." Linda took a deep breath and navigated through the dimly lit dining room. The restaurant was quiet, the kind of quiet that cost money. As she approached the semi-private alcove shielded by velvet curtains, the atmosphere changed. The temperature seemed to drop. There were 4 men at the table. 3 of them looked like linebackers squeezed into Armani suits. Thick necks, scarred knuckles, eyes scanning the room like predatory birds. But the 4th man, he was different. He sat in the center, leaning back with a terrifying, relaxed confidence. He wore a charcoal 3-piece suit that probably cost more than Linda made in a year. His hair was dark, swept back, and his eyes were the color of cold steel. This was Roman Castellano. Linda didn't know the name yet, but her body reacted to his presence immediately. It was the primal instinct of a gazelle spotting a lion. "The docks are compromised," one of the beefy men muttered, his voice gravelly. "If the feds find the container tonight, Silas takes over the entire port." "Silence," Roman said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the air like a whip. "We don't speak of business here." Linda stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly under the weight of the tray. "Good evening, gentlemen. I have the vintage you requested." Roman didn't look up. He was focused on a thick manila folder resting on the table in front of him. A single photo was peeking out from the edge. Linda began to pour the wine for the man on Roman's left. Her hand was steady until she heard the man whisper again, "But boss, the itinerary. If they see the name on the manifest." Roman slammed his hand down on the folder. "I said silence." The sudden noise startled Linda. She flinched. The bottle of Petrus slipped from her damp palm. Time seemed to slow down. Linda watched in horror as the bottle clipped the edge of the wine glass, sending a wave of dark red liquid cascading across the pristine white tablecloth and directly onto the manila folder. "No!" Linda gasped, dropping the tray to the side table and grabbing a napkin. She lunged forward to dab the wine before it soaked through the folder. In her panic, she brushed Roman's hand aside and flipped the folder open to save the documents inside. That was the mistake. For exactly 2 seconds, the contents were visible. It wasn't a drug manifest. It wasn't a list of weapons. It was a birth certificate. And a photo of a young boy, maybe 5 years old, playing in a park in Brooklyn. The name on the certificate read, Lucas Castellano. Linda froze. She stared at the photo. A hand made of iron clamped around her wrist. Linda looked up, terrified. Roman Castellano was staring directly into her eyes. His face was a mask of pure, lethal rage. The other men at the table had already half risen, hands reaching into their jackets for weapons. "What did you see?" Roman asked. His voice was a low growl, vibrating through her bones. Nothing," Linda stammered, trying to pull her wrist back. "I was just... the wine. I'm so sorry, sir." Roman didn't let go. He stood up, towering over her. He was well over 6 feet tall, radiating a dark power that made the air in the alcove feel thin. He pulled her closer, ignoring the wine dripping onto his expensive cuffs. "You saw the photo," he stated, not asking. "And you saw the name." "I don't know what you're talking about," Linda lied, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Please, you're hurting me." Mr. Henderson appeared at the curtain, his face pale as a sheet. "Mr. Castellano, I am so sorry. This girl is new. She's an idiot. I'll handle this. Linda, get out. You're fired. Get out now." Roman didn't look at the manager. He kept his steel-grey eyes locked on Linda's terrified hazel ones. He was assessing her, calculating. "She's not fired," Roman said coldly. Henderson blinked. "Sir?" "She leaves with me," Roman said, releasing her wrist but immediately gripping her upper arm with possessive force. "We have a matter to discuss regarding confidentiality." Linda's blood ran cold. Leaves with him? That was code for being taken to a warehouse and never being seen again. "No," Linda whispered, planting her feet. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Roman leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. The scent of expensive cologne and danger overwhelmed her. "You saw my son, Linda. No one knows he exists. If you want to live to see sunrise, you will walk out that door with me right now. If you stay here, my associates will handle you, and they are not as patient as I am." Linda looked at the 3 other men. They were staring at her with dead eyes, waiting for a signal. She looked back at Roman. There was something in his eyes, not just anger, but desperation. She had a choice. Trust the monster or face his pack. "Okay," she breathed. The ride in the back of the armored Cadillac Escalade was silent. Linda sat pressed against the door, clutching her purse like a shield. Roman sat on the other side, typing furiously on a secure phone. He hadn't looked at her since they left the restaurant. The car didn't go to a warehouse. It wove through the city streets and pulled into the private underground garage of the Sovereign Tower, a glass needle piercing the skyline of Midtown Manhattan. "Move," Roman commanded as the door opened. Linda followed him into a private elevator. There were no buttons, just a retinal scanner. The doors slid shut, and her ears popped as they ascended 70 floors in seconds. The penthouse was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city rain, while the interior was stark, modern, and cold. Black marble floors, white leather furniture, and absolutely no personal touches. It didn't look like a home. It looked like a fortress. Roman tossed his jacket onto a chair and turned to her. He unbuttoned his cuffs, rolling up his sleeves to reveal forearms corded with muscle and ink. A tattoo of a serpent eating its own tail wrapped around his left wrist. "Sit," he pointed to a solitary chair in the middle of the room. Linda remained standing. "I want to go home. I swear to you, I won't tell anyone about the photo. I don't even know who the kid is." Roman laughed, a dry, humorless sound. He walked over to a wet bar and poured 2 fingers of amber liquid. "You don't know who he is? That boy is the only leverage my enemies have against me. If the Russos or the Triad knew I had a son, he would be snatched off the street within the hour to force my hand." He turned, glass in hand, and stalked toward her. "You are a loose end, Linda Bennett. Born in Ohio, moved here 3 years ago. Dropped out of NYU because you couldn't afford tuition. You live in a 4th-floor walk-up in Astoria with a roommate who is never home. You have $412 in your bank account." Linda's jaw dropped. How do you know that?" "I know everything," Roman said softly, stopping inches from her. "My security team ran your background the moment we got in the car. You have no criminal record. You're clean. Which makes this complicated." "Complicated how?" Linda's voice trembled. "Usually I'd just pay you off or threaten your family," Roman said, taking a sip of his drink. "But you need money, and desperate people talk. If I give you money, you might spend it and come back for more. If I threaten you, you might go to the cops for protection." "I won't," Linda cried. "I just want to forget tonight happened." "I can't take that risk," Roman said. He set the glass down. "So here is the deal." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black credit card. He placed it on the table next to her. "You work for me now." Linda stared at the card. "What?" "My personal assistant," Roman said. "You will be by my side 12 hours a day. You will live in the staff quarters here in the building. I will pay you 10 times what you made at the restaurant. In exchange, I keep my eyes on you. I ensure you don't talk to the wrong people." "You want to hold me prisoner?" Linda asked, incredulous. "I want to keep my son safe," Roman snapped, his composure cracking for a split second, revealing a flash of terrifying intensity. "And right now, you are the only leak in my operation. You take the job, or I hand you over to Silas to ensure your silence, and Silas doesn't offer job contracts." Linda looked at Roman. He was a criminal, a monster, but beneath the threat, she saw it again. The fierce, protective father. He wasn't doing this to save his business, he was doing it to save a child. She thought about her unpaid rent, the eviction notice on her counter, the dead-end life she was living. She looked at the black card. "I have conditions," Linda said, her voice shaking, but chin raised. Roman raised an eyebrow, surprised by her spine. "You're in no position to negotiate, Tesoro." "I want weekends off," she said, "and I want you to promise. Promise you won't hurt me." Roman stepped closer. He reached out, his rough thumb tracing the line of her jaw. The touch sent a jolt of electricity straight to her core. She should have pulled away, but she couldn't. "I promise I won't kill you, Linda," Roman whispered, his eyes dropping to her lips for a fraction of a second. "But I can't promise I won't hurt you. In my world, pain and loyalty are the same thing." He pulled back and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "You start tomorrow at 6 a.m. The guest room is down the hall to the left. Lock the door if it makes you feel better, but I have the master key." Linda stood there alone in the middle of the room, her heart racing. She had just sold her soul to the devil. But as she watched the rain lash against the glass, she realized the scariest part wasn't the danger. It was that she wanted to know more about the boy in the photo and the man who would burn the world down to protect him. The next morning, Linda woke up to a view that cost millions of dollars, but she felt poorer than ever. Her old clothes were gone. In the closet of the guest room, which was larger than her entire apartment in Astoria, hung a row of sleek, professional outfits. Black pencil skirts, silk blouses in muted tones, and heels that looked like weapons. There was a note on the dresser in sharp, angular handwriting. "Be ready in 10 minutes. We have a meeting. Do not speak unless I ask you a question." Ah. Linda dressed quickly, her hands shaking as she buttoned a cream-colored silk blouse. When she walked out into the living area, Roman was already there. He was drinking espresso, reading a tablet, and looking devastatingly handsome in a navy suit. Silas, the terrifying bodyguard from the restaurant, stood by the door like a gargoyle. "You're late," Roman said without looking up. "It's 5:58, Linda countered, checking the expensive watch he had left on the nightstand for her. "You said 6 o'clock. Roman looked up, his eyes narrowing. He wasn't used to people correcting him. He stood up, closing the distance between them in 2 long strides. He reached out and adjusted the collar of her blouse. His knuckles grazed her neck, sending a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. "In my world, on time is late," he murmured. "Let's go." The day was a blur of high-stakes tension. Linda quickly learned that being Roman Castellanos' assistant meant being an accomplice. They didn't go to an office. They went to the back room of a high-end art gallery in Chelsea, then to a construction site in Jersey where men with guns patrolled the perimeter. Linda sat in the corner during these meetings, taking notes on an iPad as Roman discussed logistics, shipping lanes, and unions. It was all code for smuggling and racketeering. She was terrified, but she was also observant. The trouble started at the third meeting. They were at the Velvet Room, a private cigar club. Roman was meeting with Victor Moretti, a rival underboss who controlled the gambling rings in Atlantic City. Victor was a snake of a man. Oily hair, too much gold jewelry, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The revenue from the slots is down, Roman," Victor said, spreading his hands. "The tourists aren't coming like they used to. I can't give you the full 40% this month." Roman sat still, his face unreadable. "The deal was 40%, Victor, regardless of the market. I'm telling you, the numbers don't work." Victor slammed a ledger onto the table. "Look for yourself." Roman reached for the ledger, but Linda spoke up. The words left her mouth before she could stop them. "That's a lie!" The room went deathly silent. Victor's head snapped toward her. Silas shifted his hand to his holster. Roman turned to her, his expression dangerous. "What did you say?" Roman asked softly. Linda's heart was hammering, but she pointed at the open ledger on the table. I used to work the register at a grocery store before the restaurant. I know how people hide voids. Look at column D." She stood up, her legs trembling, and walked to the table. She traced a line of numbers. He's listing maintenance costs for machines that are marked as out of order in the previous month's log. But if you look at the energy consumption report on the next page, the power usage for the floor hasn't dropped. The machines aren't broken, they're running. He's skimming the cash off the top and marking it as maintenance loss. Victor turned purple. "You little B******. Who is she? A waitress?" He lunged across the table. Roman moved faster than humanly possible. In one fluid motion, he grabbed a heavy crystal ashtray and smashed it onto Victor's hand, pinning it to the mahogany table. Victor screamed. "She is my associate," Roman hissed, leaning over the screaming man, "and she can count better than you can lie." Roman twisted the man's hand. "You have 24 hours to bring me my money, Victor, plus 10% for the insult, or I take your other hand." Roman stood up, straightened his suit jacket, and looked at Linda. There was a new fire in his eyes. It wasn't just intimidation anymore. It was respect. "Let's go," Roman said. As they walked back to the car, the adrenaline was crashing through Linda's system. She felt nauseous. She had just helped a mob boss extort a man. Inside the car, Roman didn't sit on the far side this time. He sat right next to her. The heat radiating from his body was intoxicating. "You have a sharp eye," he said, his voice low. "I hate bullies," Linda whispered, looking out the window to avoid his gaze. "And he was lying to you." "Why did you help me?" Roman asked. "You hate me. You could have let him rip me off." Linda turned to him. "Because if he rips you off, you get angry. And if you get angry, I'm the one who has to deal with it. I'm just trying to survive, Roman." "Oh." Roman stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a phone, and typed a number. "Here," he said, handing her the phone. "What is this?" "It's a burner. Untraceable," Roman said. "Call your roommate. Tell her you got a job in Europe for a few months. Tell her you're safe. I know you're worried about her worrying." Linda took the phone, her eyes welling up with tears. It was a small kindness, a crumb, but in this dark world it felt like a feast. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me," Roman said, his face hardening again as the car slowed down. "I just need your head in the game, because things are about to get much worse." 2 weeks passed. Linda fell into a strange, terrifying rhythm. By day, she was Roman's shadow, managing his legitimate business fronts and silently witnessing his criminal empire. By night, she slept in the golden cage of the penthouse, listening to the city below. The dynamic between them was shifting. The fear was still there, but it was layered with a tension that thickened every time they were in a room together. Roman would catch her looking at him, and he wouldn't look away. He would brush past her in the hallway, lingering just a second too long. But the secret, the boy, was never mentioned. Until the red phone rang. It was 2 a.m. A storm was battering New York, thunder shaking the glass walls of the penthouse. Linda was asleep when her door was thrown open. She sat up, gasping. Roman stood in the doorway. He wasn't wearing his suit. He was in a t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair messy, his face pale with panic. She had never seen him look like this. He didn't look like a don. He looked like a terrified father. "Get dressed," he barked. "Now! What's happening? Are we under attack?" Linda scrambled out of bed. "It's Lucas," Roman said, his voice cracking. "The nanny?" She called. "He's having an attack. The inhaler isn't working. The roads are flooded. The ambulance can't get to the safe house in time." "I'm coming," Linda said instantly. She didn't ask questions. She grabbed a hoodie and ran after him. They took the private elevator down to the garage. Roman didn't wait for a driver. He jumped into a black Range Rover, and Linda barely got the door closed before he peeled out, tires screeching. He drove like a madman, weaving through the rain-slicked streets of Manhattan and onto the highway heading upstate. "Talk to me," Linda said, gripping the dashboard. "What kind of attack?" "Asthma. Severe," Roman said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "He's allergic to everything. The storm, the pressure change, triggers it. Mrs. Gable is old. She panics. She said he's turning blue." Roman slammed his hand against the steering wheel. "I should be there. I should never have left him alone." "You're going to him now," Linda said firmly. She reached out and placed her hand over his on the gear shift. It was a bold move, but he didn't pull away. He gripped her hand back, squeezing it so hard it hurt. "Just drive, Roman." They reached the safe house in record time. It was a secluded farmhouse in the Hudson Valley, surrounded by high fences and cameras. Roman didn't even park. He left the car running on the lawn and sprinted inside. Linda followed. Inside, the house was warm but chaotic. An elderly woman was sobbing in the hallway. From the bedroom, Linda heard the terrifying sound of a child wheezing, fighting for every breath. Roman burst into the room. A small boy, the same one from the photo, was sitting on the bed, his chest heaving, his face pale and clammy. "Papa," the boy wheezed. "I'm here, Luca, I'm here." Roman fell to his knees beside the bed. He grabbed the nebulizer machine on the table. "Why isn't this working?" "The power. It flickered," the nanny wept from the doorway. "The machine won't start." Linda pushed past the nanny. She looked at the machine. "It's a fuse. The storm surge blew the fuse in the plug." "Fix it!" Roman roared, looking at her with desperate eyes. "I can't fix the machine, but we don't need it," Linda said. She went into crisis mode, a skill she learned managing a busy dinner rush with short staff. "Do you have a spacer? A manual inhaler?" "In the bag," Roman pointed. Linda grabbed the manual inhaler. She sat on the bed next to Lucas. The boy looked at her with wide, fearful eyes, Roman's eyes. "Hi, Lucas," she said softly, keeping her voice calm despite the panic in the room. "My name is Linda. I'm a friend of your dad's. We're going to play a game, okay? I need you to copy me." She put the mask over his face. Deep breath in, hold it, and out. Lucas panicked, thrashing. "I can't." "Look at me," Roman said, grabbing his son's shoulders. "Look at Linda. Do what she says. Trust her." Lucas looked at Linda. She smiled, a warm, reassuring smile. She started a rhythm, breathing with him. 1, 2, 3. Push it out. Good. Again. It took 20 minutes. 20 agonizing minutes of Linda coaching the boy, rubbing his back, while Roman held his hand, whispering Italian endearments. "Piccolo, amore mio, forza." Finally, the wheezing subsided. Lucas's color returned. His breathing evened out into a steady rhythm. He slumped against Roman's chest, exhausted. "Is he okay?" Roman asked, his voice trembling. Linda checked his pulse. He's stable. The attack is over. He just needs sleep. Roman buried his face in his son's hair. He stayed like that for a long time, just breathing in the scent of his child. Linda watched them, her heart aching. This wasn't the monster who broke fingers in cigar clubs. This was a man who loved his son more than life itself. Roman looked up at her. His defenses were completely down. His eyes were raw. "Thank you," he mouthed. Linda nodded and quietly stepped out of the room to give them privacy. She went to the kitchen to make tea for the nanny, who was still shaking. An hour later, Roman came into the kitchen. He looked exhausted, leaning against the doorframe. "He's asleep," Roman said. "Good," Linda said, handing him a mug of tea. "You should sleep too." Roman took the mug but set it down. He walked over to her. The kitchen was dimly lit, the storm outside finally quieting to a soft rain. "You saved him," Roman said. "I froze. I didn't know what to do about the machine. But you handled it." "I took care of my little brother when he had bronchitis," Linda said, looking down. "It's scary, but you just have to stay calm." Roman reached out, taking her chin in his hand and forcing her to look at him. "No one has ever seen him, Linda. No one. You are the first person outside of the staff to meet him." "I won't tell anyone," Linda promised. "I swear, Roman. I see how much you love him. I would never put a child in danger." Roman searched her eyes. He believed her. And in that moment, the dynamic shifted irrevocably. She wasn't his prisoner anymore. She was family. He stepped closer, his body heat enveloping her. He lowered his head, his forehead resting against hers. It was an intimate gesture, vulnerable and desperate. "I don't know what to do with you, Linda," he whispered. "I should send you away. Being near me, it's death. But I don't think I can let you go." Linda's breath hitched. She placed her hands on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "Then don't!" Roman groaned low in his throat. He tilted his head, his lips hovering inches from hers. The air crackled with electricity. He was going to kiss her, and God help her, she was going to let him. Crash. The sound came from the front porch. Roman pulled back instantly, the father vanishing and the killer returning in a split second. He drew a gun from the back of his waistband. Linda hadn't even realized he had it. "Stay here," he ordered. He moved silently to the window and peered through the blinds. "What is it?" Linda whispered. Roman turned back to her, his face pale. "Someone was out there," he said grimly. "They knocked over a planter." "Maybe it was the wind? An animal?" "No," Roman said, walking to the back door. "Animals don't leave boot prints." He looked at Linda, his eyes cold with realization. "We were followed. They know about the house. Get to the car, now!" Roman roared, shoving the gun back into his waistband and scooping Lucas up into his arms. The peaceful farmhouse kitchen dissolved into chaos. Linda grabbed Mrs. Gable, the sobbing nanny, by the arm. "We have to move, Mrs. Gable. Come on!" They burst out the back door into the rain. The storm had passed its peak, but the wind was still howling, whipping wet leaves against their faces. The darkness of the woods surrounding the property, once comforting, now felt like a gaping mouth waiting to swallow them. Roman threw Lucas into the back seat of the Range Rover and buckled him in with terrifying speed. "Get down. Stay low. Do not lift your head." Linda pushed Mrs. Gable into the back with the boy and jumped into the passenger seat. Roman vaulted behind the wheel, engine roaring to life. He didn't turn on the headlights. "Why aren't the lights on?" Linda hissed, clutching the door handle. "Because they're waiting for us at the end of the driveway," Roman said, his voice deadly calm. "Hold on." He slammed the car into reverse, spinning the wheel. Instead of heading down the gravel driveway towards the main road, he floored the gas and drove straight across the lawn, crashing through the white picket fence. The heavy SUV shuddered as it plowed through the mud, heading toward the dense tree line at the back of the property. "Roman! The trees!" Linda screamed. "There's an old logging path," Roman gritted out, fighting the steering wheel as the tires slipped in the mud. "I scouted it when I bought the place. It leads to the county road." Just as the SUV hit the tree line, Bright floodlights erupted from the front gate behind them. 3 black SUVs smashed through the main entrance, engines screaming. Gunfire erupted. Pop, 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 small flashes of light in the distance. A bullet shattered the rear windshield, showering the trunk space with glass. Mrs. Gable screamed. Lucas started crying. "Heads down!" Roman yelled. He swerved onto the narrow dirt path. Branches whipped against the sides of the car like lashes. It was a blind drive. Roman was navigating by memory and instinct in the pitch black. The car bounced violently over roots and rocks. "They're following!" Linda looked back. 2 pairs of headlights were bobbing through the field, chasing them. "Call Andrew," Roman ordered, tossing his phone into Linda's lap. "Speed dial 1. Tell him code black. The farm is burned." Linda fumbled with the phone, her fingers shaking. She hit the button. It rang once. "Boss?" A deep, smooth voice answered. "Andrew, it's Linda. We're under attack at the farm. Roman says code black." "Linda?" The voice sounded confused, then urgent. "Is he alive? Where are you heading?" "We're on the logging path, heading for the—" Linda looked at Roman. "Where are we going?" "Don't tell him the destination," Roman snapped, snatching the phone from her hand. He put it on speaker but kept his eyes on the road. "Andrew, secure the secondary location in Queens. Meet me there in 1 hour. Bring the heavy cleanup crew, and find out who talked." "Consider it done, Roman." "I'm moving now," Andrew said, and the line went dead. Roman tossed the phone onto the dashboard and finally flicked on the headlights. They had popped out onto a paved road. He slammed the accelerator, the engine whining as they hit 90 miles per hour. "Who is Andrew?" Linda asked, her heart still trying to beat out of her chest. "My underboss. The only man I trust with my life," Roman said. He checked the rearview mirror. The pursuing cars were gone, likely unable to navigate the logging trail fast enough. "He's been with me since we were kids in the orphanage." Linda looked at Lucas in the back seat. He was curled up in a ball, clutching his inhaler. Mrs. Gable was praying in Italian. "They knew exactly where we were," Linda said, her mind racing. "Roman, you said no one knew about the farm." "Only Andrew and the security team knew," Roman said, his jaw tightening. "Which means one of my guards sold me out. When I find him, I will peel the skin from his bones. Or—" Linda hesitated. She thought about the burner phone Roman had given her. The one he said was untraceable. Or what? Roman glanced at her. "The phone you gave me," Linda said slowly. "Who prepped it?" "The tech guy." "Why?" "When we were in the car yesterday, you typed a number into it before giving it to me," Linda recalled. "But I never saw you put a SIM card in." "It was already active." Roman frowned. "Andrew handed it to me before we left the penthouse. He said it was ready to go." A heavy silence filled the car. Roman's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles turned white. "Andrew handles all the logistics," Roman whispered, more to himself than her. "He hired the security detail for the farm. He organized the shift changes. And he just asked me where we were heading," Linda added quietly. "He didn't ask if Lucas was okay. He asked where we were heading." Roman's face went stoic, a mask of stone. But Linda saw the pain in his eyes. It was a betrayal deeper than any knife wound. "Throw the phone out the window," Roman ordered. "What?" "My phone. The one on the dashboard. Throw it out. Now!" Linda rolled down the window and hurled the device into the rainy night. "They're tracking the GPS," Roman said. "We aren't going to Queens. If Andrew is the leak, Queens is a trap." "Then where do we go?" Linda asked. "We have a sick child and an old woman. We can't stay on the run." Roman looked at her. For the first time, he looked unsure. The King of New York had lost his castle. "I know a place," Linda said suddenly. "No cameras, no tech, no mafia ties." Roman raised an eyebrow. "Where?" "Astoria," she said. "My apartment." Linda's apartment was tiny, smelling of old books and vanilla candles. But to Roman, it looked like a fortress, because it was the one place on Earth nobody would look for him. It was 4 a.m. They had parked the Range Rover 6 blocks away and walked through the alleyways. Mrs. Gable was asleep on Linda's bed with Lucas. Roman and Linda were in the small living room. The blinds were drawn tight. Roman was pacing the small rug, stripping off his wet shirt. Underneath, his torso was a map of violence, scars from knives, bullets, and burns. But there was a fresh wound on his side, a graze from the shootout at the gate. It was bleeding sluggishly. "You're hurt," Linda said, grabbing the first aid kit she kept under the sink. "It's a scratch," Roman dismissed her, reaching for his discarded shirt to staunch the blood. "Sit down, Roman," Linda commanded. She pushed him onto a worn-out beige sofa. "You're dripping blood on my rug, and unlike you, I can't afford a new one." Roman looked at her, surprised by her tone. A small smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Bossy." "I was a waitress for 5 years," Linda retorted, opening a bottle of rubbing alcohol. "I've handled drunks, Karens, and toddlers. A mob boss is nothing special. This is going to sting." She pressed the alcohol-soaked cotton to his side. Roman hissed, his muscles contracting. But he didn't pull away. As Linda cleaned the wound, the intimacy of the moment settled over them. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a raw, magnetic pull. She was touching him, her hands gentle on his dangerous skin. He was watching her, his eyes tracing the curve of her neck, the focus in her hazel eyes. "Why did you bring us here?" Roman asked quietly. "You could have run. When we stopped the car, you could have bolted." "And leave Lucas?" Linda shook her head, taping a gauze pad over the cut. "He's a little boy, Roman. He didn't ask for this life." "Neither did you," Roman said. He reached out, catching her hand as she pulled away. "You should hate me. I kidnapped you. I threatened you." "I'm working on the hate part," Linda admitted, her voice breathless. "But you're making it difficult." "Why?" Roman pulled her closer until she was standing between his spread knees. "Because I see who you are with him," she whispered. "You're a monster to everyone else, Roman. But to him, you're just a dad who's scared of the dark." Roman's eyes darkened. "I am the dark, Linda." "Not tonight," she said. He leaned forward, burying his face in her stomach, wrapping his arms around her waist. It was a gesture of surrender. The powerful Don, kneeling before the waitress. "Andrew," Roman's voice was muffled against her shirt. "He was my brother. We starved together on the streets. We built this empire from nothing. Why would he do it?" Linda ran her fingers through his damp hair. "Power? Jealousy? Maybe he thinks you're weak because of Lucas." Roman pulled back, his face hardening. "Then I will show him exactly how strong I am." He stood up, towering over her again. The vulnerable moment was gone, replaced by cold resolve, but before the wall went fully back up, he cupped her face in his hands. "If we get out of this," Roman said intensely, "I am going to rewrite the contract I gave you." "Oh yeah?" Linda managed a weak smile. "More vacation days?" "No," Roman said, leaning down. "A lifetime position." He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was acclaiming. It tasted of rain, danger, and desperation. Linda melted into him, wrapping her arms around his neck. For a moment, the world outside, the guns, the traitor, the rain didn't exist. There was only the fire between them. A vibration on the coffee table broke them apart. It was Linda's personal cell phone, the old one she hadn't thrown away. She stared at it. "Who is calling me at 4 a.m.? She picked it up. Unknown number. She looked at Roman. He nodded for her to answer, putting his ear close to hers to listen. "Hello?" Linda answered tentatively. "Hello, Linda." A smooth, cultured voice purred. It wasn't Andrew. It was someone else. Someone she had heard once before, briefly, at the restaurant. "Silas?" she whispered. "Very good," the voice laughed. Silas was the rival warlord, the man who wanted the docks. "I must say you are a resourceful girl. Bringing him to Astoria. Clever. We were turning Queens upside down." Roman's blood ran cold. "How? How did they know?" "How do you have this number?" Linda demanded. Oh, sweetheart, Silas chuckled. We didn't track the car, and we didn't track Roman's phone. We tracked you. The cheap little necklace you wear, the one you left on the bedside table at the penthouse during the day. Linda's hand flew to the silver locket around her neck. It was a gift from her late mother. She never took it off. Andrew was very helpful, Silas continued. He put a micro-transmitter inside the locket while you were showering yesterday. He said you were the perfect Trojan horse. Linda froze in horror. She was the leak. She had led them right to Lucas. Look out the window, Linda, Silas said. Roman ripped the blinds open. Down on the street, 3 black vans were pulling up to the curb. Men with tactical gear were spilling out, surrounding the building. They weren't trying to be quiet this time. They were racking shotguns and assault rifles. Roman, Linda gasped, the phone slipping from her hand. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Roman grabbed her shoulders. She expected anger. She expected him to kill her. Instead, he looked at her with a fierce intensity. Listen to me. The fire escape in the back. It leads to the roof of the bakery next door. You take Lucas and Mrs. Gable. You run. What about you? Linda cried. Roman pulled a pair of heavy black pistols from his duffel bag. He checked the chambers with a metallic click. I'm going to stay here, Roman said, walking towards the apartment door, and I'm going to introduce Andrew and Silas to the devil. No, you'll die! Linda grabbed his arm. If I leave, they chase us. If I stay, I buy you time. Roman kissed her forehead hard. Go, save my son. If you do that, you save me. He shoved her towards the bedroom. Go! Linda scrambled into the bedroom, shaking Mrs. Gable awake. We have to go! The window! Now! As she helped the terrified nanny and the sleepy boy out onto the rainy fire escape, she heard the front door of her apartment kick open. Then the deafening roar of gunfire erupted from inside her living room. Linda didn't look back. She grabbed Lucas's hand and ran across the slick metal grating, climbing toward the roof, tears blinding her eyes. She was running away from the only man she had ever loved, leaving him to die in her tiny apartment to pay for a mistake she didn't know she had made. The rain on the roof of the bakery was torrential, masking the sound of Linda's frantic breathing. She crouched behind a rusty ventilation unit, shielding Lucas and Mrs. Gable with her body. Below, in the alleyway, she could hear shouting. Above, the wail of sirens began to pierce the night. Police were finally responding to the war zone in her apartment. Linda, Lucas whispered, shivering. Where is Papa? He's coming! Linda lied, her heart breaking. She checked the fire escape ladder that led down to the back alley. It was their only way out. Mrs. Gable, Linda whispered. Take Lucas down. Run to the subway station on 31st. Do not stop. What about you? The old woman asked. I'm going to draw them away, Linda said, standing up. She ripped the silver locket from her neck. The tracker. Go! As Mrs. Gable and Lucas scrambled down the ladder, Linda ran to the opposite side of the roof, toward the street view. She held the necklace high. Hey! She screamed into the storm. I'm up here! A spotlight from the street swiveled, blinding her. There she is! A voice roared. 3 men climbed over the parapet from the adjacent building. Leading them was a man in a sleek trench coat, holding a suppressed pistol. It was Andrew, the brother, the traitor. He didn't look remorseful. He looked annoyed. You're making this very difficult, Linda, Andrew shouted over the wind, walking slowly toward her. His men fanned out, cutting off her escape. Where is he? Linda screamed, backing up until her heels hit the edge of the roof. Did you kill him? Andrew smirked. Roman? He's stubborn. My men are finishing him off downstairs. It's over, Linda. The age of the Castellano family is done. Silas pays better, and he doesn't have a weakness like a secret brat. He raised the gun, aiming it at her chest. Now give me the necklace. I know the boy is with the nanny. If you tell me where they went, I'll make this quick. Linda clutched the necklace tight. She looked at the edge of the roof. It was a 4-story drop. Go to hell, she spat. Andrew sighed. Have it your way. He tightened his finger on the trigger. Bang! The sound was thunderous, but it didn't come from Andrew's gun. Andrew's shoulder exploded in a spray of red mist. He screamed, dropping his weapon and spinning around. Standing on the top of the fire escape landing, silhouetted by the lightning, was Roman. He looked like a demon risen from the underworld. His shirt was soaked in blood, his own and others. He held a heavy Desert Eagle in one hand, smoke curling from the barrel. His eyes were void of humanity. They were pure, cold death. "Roman!" Linda gasped. "You missed," Roman growled, stepping onto the roof. Andrew clutched his shattered shoulder, falling to his knees. The two other henchmen raised their weapons, but Roman was faster. Bang, bang. 2 shots, 2 bodies hitting the wet tar. Roman didn't rush. He walked toward Andrew with the slow, terrifying inevitability of a glacier. "I gave you everything," Roman said, his voice low but cutting through the storm. "I took you off the street. I made you a king. You made me a servant," Andrew spat, blood bubbling on his lips. "You got soft, Roman. You risked the whole empire for a kid and a waitress. You aren't fit to lead." Roman stopped 2 feet from him. He looked at Linda. "Are you hurt?" "No." She shook her head, tears mixing with the rain. "Lucas got away. He's safe." Roman nodded. He looked back at Andrew. "You think love makes a man weak?" Roman asked, tilting his head. "Love is the only thing that makes a man dangerous enough to burn the world down." "Silas is coming." Andrew laughed quietly, a wet, gurgling sound. "You can't kill us all." "Silas is already dead," Roman said calmly. "I triggered the failsafe on the docks before I came up here. The FBI is raiding his warehouse right now. He's not coming for you, Andrew. No one is." Andrew's eyes widened in fear. The realization hit him. Roman was always 10 steps ahead. "Roman, please," Andrew whispered. "We're brothers." Roman raised the gun. "My brother died the moment you threatened my son." The gunshot echoed into the night, final and absolute. Roman dropped his arm. He swayed slightly, the adrenaline finally wearing off, the blood loss taking its toll. Linda ran to him, catching him just as his knees buckled. "I've got you," she cried, pulling his heavy arm over her shoulder. "I've got you, Roman." He looked at her, his vision blurring. He reached up, his bloody hand cuping her cheek, smearing red on her pale skin. "You stayed," he whispered, sounding amazed. "You didn't run." "I told you," Linda sobbed, holding him up with all her strength. "I was just serving the wrong table before. I'm at the right one now." Sirens wailed below as the police surrounded the building, but Roman didn't look worried. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a badge, a legitimate federal consultant badge, another layer of his complex web of lies and power. "Let them come," Roman murmured, leaning his forehead against hers. "We're untouchable. Underscore, 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 underscore. Epilogue. 6 months later. The sun over the Amalfi coast was warm, smelling of lemons and salt. On the terrace of a sprawling white villa overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, Linda sat with a book in her lap. She wasn't wearing a waitress uniform. She was wearing a white sundress and a diamond ring on her finger that was heavy enough to sink a small boat. Down in the garden, Lucas was running through the olive trees, laughing as he chased a golden retriever. He looked healthy, happy, and free. "Lunch is served, Signora," a maid said, placing a tray of wine and cheese on the table. "Thank you, Maria," Linda smiled. A shadow fell over her. Roman walked out onto the terrace. He wore linen trousers and a loose white shirt, the sleeves rolled up to reveal the faint white scars on his arms. He looked younger, the weight of the New York underworld lifted from his shoulders. He had handed the day-to-day operations to a new, vetted council. He was still the king, but he ruled from a distance now. He walked over to Linda and kissed the top of her head. "Is he happy?" Roman asked, looking down at his son. "He's perfect," Linda said. She reached up, taking Roman's hand. "We all are. Roman sat on the edge of her chair, pulling her into his lap. "I have a meeting with the Prime Minister in an hour." "Cancel it," Linda said, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I can't," Roman smirked. "Business." "I'm your business," she teased. Roman's eyes darkened, that familiar spark of possession flaring up. "You are my life, Linda. My soul." He kissed her, deep and slow, with the promise of a forever that they had fought for in blood and rain. "By the way," Linda whispered against his lips, "I fired the new gardener." "Why?" Roman frowned. "He looked at me the wrong way," she shrugged. Roman threw his head back and laughed, a rich, genuine sound that echoed over the cliffs. "God, I love you. You're more dangerous than I am." "I learned from the best," Linda smiled. She looked out at the ocean. The waitress who had spilled a glass of wine was gone. In her place was the Queen of the Castellano Empire, and she would never serve the wrong table again. And that is the story of how one clumsy mistake turned Linda Bennett into the most powerful woman in the underworld. From a terrified waitress to a mafia queen, she proved that sometimes the scariest path leads to the safest destination. What did you think of Andrew's betrayal? Did he deserve a second chance, or was Roman right to end him? Personally, I think anyone who threatens a child deserves exactly what Andrew got. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of romance, danger, and revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. Share this video with a friend who loves a dark romance with a happy ending. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.